recently on a Amish Facebook group, somebody commented, made a post on uh, how well behaved Amish kids are and how they don't spank their kids. Oh, the misinformed world out there. Wishful thinking, huh? I find it very laughable when you follow these Amish groups on Facebook. Anything Amish, so what? I don't know what they are. They're all called, but how these non-Amish people become experts on Amish, and the things they claim are just ridiculous. Yes, Amish kids seem to be well behaved, and yes, they do use spanking as consequences. Let's get into that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about PA, physical, and then I'm going to share my opinion on parenting and punishment and spanking, and maybe a few stories in between. I'm enjoying my favorite brew from the local coffee shop. I love it. If we ever move out of here, I'm going to miss it. Do Amish use spanking? And why are their kids so well behaved? I can only speak for the community I grew up in, and really only my family, because when it comes to punishment for kids, that varies from family to family. We had cousins who I don't think ever got spanked. It's because the parents chose not to use that as a punishment. They chose a different method. We as children got spanked. We deserved every time we got spanked. We didn't get spanked enough. My parents did not like doing it. But as a whole, I would say 90% of families use that method as punishment. Did I say that already? It might be changing as my generation's coming in, as the generations behind us are growing up, are becoming parents. They are more and more having influences from the outsides as far as they're reading more. They're more open to reading parenting books. They're more, the internet. They have more access to internet libraries and stuff. So they're more open to ideas of different methods of parenting, different methods of cooking, different methods, all that. So as they're learning healthier ways, some parents might be choosing to go down a different route. So, but when growing up, we got spanked. The boys in our church I think spanking was used for them, most of them anyway. Most of my cousins, spanking was a form of punishment. That was just when we messed up, when we didn't do what we were supposed to, or we got in trouble. Uh, my dad had a rubber hose, my leather belt at one time probably. The Swartzentroopers, the stricter Amish, still definitely probably mostly all use that as their punishment method. The parochial schools still might use spanking as a punishment as well if things get bad enough in the schools. I'm not sure. Physical PA does happen in Amish communities. Spanking should only be done out of love, the correct way. That's how my parents did it. If you're enjoying spanking, or if you're in such a state of anger and you're spanking, it's the wrong. It's not. You should. That's PA. I found out recently. I met a guy who was extremely PA'd when he was a kid. His brothers were. His story is so amazing. I would love to share it. I offered him. I asked him if he wanted to do an interview, because from where he was, it blows my mind that this was happening close to our house, and we had no clue. We didn't know. My parents didn't know. Nobody. From this little Amish boy being PA'd to where he is now. Like he walked a hard life. He shared his story with me in person. He's a little hesitant about doing it publicly, which I understand. But it's crazy. That one of the recent jobs he's had, just as a former Amish kid, it blows my mind. Hopefully someday. But it is. It happens in families. If it was in that family, it was in other families in the area. It's in other communities. It definitely happens, and it is not the correct way to punish. If you are experiencing PA, physical A, even SA, or emotional A, you can call Amish Rescue Mission, which is now Amish Restoration, at 888-621-1985. That's 888-621-1985, and they can help you. If you've experienced it in the past, or no longer experienced it, you can still call them, and you can find healing. And they can definitely help if you're wanting help. If you need out of the situation, they can help. So it does happen. It's unfortunate. We need to do what we can to report those cases and get them to stop. A lot of times when a child is getting PA'd, it's because the parent who's doing it went through the same thing as a kid, because his dad probably went through the same thing as a kid as well. It's what we call a generational curse. It kind of just gets handed on and on, unless somebody in that line breaks that chain, can break that and not do it to their kids. Our Amish kids well behaved. When you're out and about in the stores, in Amish communities, in Walmarts, and when you see Amish people in public and their little kids tagging along, they look very, very well behaved, and they probably are better behaved than most. And a lot of people comment on this. They notice that. Why is that? Why are they so well behaved? Well, I would, in my opinion, it's probably more of a fact. The main reason Amish kids are so well behaved is because they have a father as head of the household at home raising them. They have the father and they have the mother working together to raise the kids. Much so, in a much better situation than the world. The father, as head of the household in the home, is the most important thing for a child, is the most important thing. You say, oh, well, the mother, she gave birth. Nope, the father is the most important thing. The mother is also very important. When you look at all these kids, when you look at all these troublemaking kids out there who are constantly getting into trouble, into drugs, into throwing rocks through the neighbors' windows, just being rebellious, it's because there is no father present. There's a single mom oftentimes. If the father is there, he's an alcoholic, he's on drugs, he's playing video games 24 hours a day, he's not paying attention to his kids. That's why. It's a fatherless home. If you go watch Soft White Underbelly is a YouTuber who interviews prostitutes, strippers, gang members, people, addicts, all sorts of these people that are living that just it's got to be an atrocious lifestyle. One of the first questions he asks them is, "What was your home life like? Your mother, father home?" And almost always they say, "I was raised by my mom. That my dad wasn't there." If they do say their dad was there, he was on drugs or an alcoholic or didn't care or he was out with other women all the time. It's just facts. If every child right now would have a good father in their house, leading them, being head of the household, that would change the world for. So it would be astounding how much that would change the world if every kid had a good father at home raising them. Why do you think this nation has gone the way it has? Why do you think this nation is just been trashed? It's because Satan, through the feminist movement, through TV, has taken the father off the head of the household, has made him unimportant. Women have become independent. They don't need the man. And he has destroyed the family structure. And that's why we are where we're at. It's not because of who is president or our corrupt government. It's because the fathers aren't being men. It's because women aren't allowing them to be men. That is the number one reason Amish kids are so well behaved when you see them. Another reason is because they're giving responsibilities and they're made to behave at home. They are given responsibilities early on, taking care of feeding the pets, picking up their clothes, whatever it may be. The mother is, while the father is at the at work, the mother's oftentimes teaching them. The father comes home, he helps, and they work together to raise this child uh, to be responsible, have chores, and to behave. At the kitchen table, they have to behave. If they don't, punishment, probably a spanking. And the punishment starts at an early age. And so as they grow up, they have they're just more well behaved. That's the second reason. I think the third reason they look so well behaved in public is it doesn't have to really do with parenting. It's because an Amish kid's life is it's rather boring, kind of. If you live on a farm, it's not so boring, but you're growing up amongst a house with no TV, no radio, no electronics. You have your toys that you play with. You have your farm little animals you can play with the barn, and you use your imagination to play and you have little chores, but there's nothing exciting about an Amish life. And then everybody also lives that way. All the cousins and all your friends and the church people, everybody you interact with has the same life. uh, it's you should see you should see just yesterday I drove my brother around and he brought his little daughter and I just turned on he went into a coffee shop to buy her hot chocolate and she was out there in the truck with me, so I just turned on some Christian music and I just looked back at her in the back seat and was like, do you like this song? And her eyes were just lit up and excited and yeah. Because they just don't get to hear that on a daily basis. They don't have that music on a daily basis. This is exciting for her. So when you have this boring, monotonous lifestyle, and then you go to the grocery store with your dad or parents, or Walmart, or to the zoo, or wherever out in public, um, it's a lot more to take in. You have a lot more to take in. So you're just kind of more in awe, and you hang out with your parents. You're not sure how to interact, um, and they're not scared, but you know what? This is a lot to take in for them. There's TVs going on in Walmart. There's all this different foods that you look at all these different food. It's just even though they might do it on a weekly or biweekly basis, it's still just from the plainness at home to going to the public is a wowing factor. So that kind of makes them maybe act more like they're behaved. We did things we weren't supposed to. We would, if the cousins or the neighbors got together and the parents were inside talking. The parents, when parents get together to hang out, they don't have TV, so they go visit each other. And when they hang out, they're in the living room, kitchen, wherever, talking, and the kids are turned loose. We're turned loose. They trust us. So we would hound around the neighborhood and we would pick on buggies that are going by or cars that are going by, like throwing corn cobs or like shedding the corn off the cobs and throwing it at them. Or we uh, would do what you call bucky flopping. So like some single buggies have a little trunk area where there's just a lid. So we would wait for the buggy to pass, run up behind them and grab that lid and just start slamming it. So it'd be whap, 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 whap. And it would scare the horse and the horse would take off. Little things like that as, 10, 12-year-olds. Amish have church every other Sunday at their houses. So in between Sundays, or if one of my cousins had church at their house, our family would go to their church to visit their church. It's just something you do. And here over at their church, they have their group of boys that are always at the same church. They're always together. They're always hanging out, playing basketball. And then in come us, my cousins, and for some reason, at my one cousin's house, like we would go over there and we'd be hanging out with our cousins, and then they had sleigh ball boys there in that church, and they would always pick on us. Like we would get into fights and arguments, like I mean, throwing rocks type of stuff sometimes, and um, I don't know why. I don't know why they would do that. It's just and the men would have to come out and separate us or whatever, tell us to stop. Uh, and when we were when we were with our cousins, there was, three of us the same age. There was two, my brother and another cousin who were a year younger. Um, at 13, 14, 12 years old, the younger kids would try to hang out with us, and we didn't want them to. They were too immature. We wanted just us older boys, and we'd have to run away from them all the time and hide from them, and probably mostly because we were trying to smoke cigarettes without them finding out, so they wouldn't tattle on us. But so we weren't that well. We got into trouble, just like any kid. There was always the dreaded at church. Church was 3 hours long, and it was, uh, it, that 3 hours was 24 hours to me. It took forever. You sang three or four songs. They took so long to sing. They sing in a slow Gregorian chant. It's so long. You can hear it on uh, Breaking the Silence, My Amish Story. Go watch that series. And you can't understand the words. And then a preacher would stand up and he would talk. And sometimes we would get lucky and it's a younger preacher and he would speak in Pennsylvania Dutch and not German so we could understand it. And he was more exciting and into it and he had stories and we would be, focused more. But oftentimes it was just an old man, one of the old preachers who came up and talked a lot in German. We didn't understand him. He was dry and boring. So we would find things to do. We would be, interact. We would be playing with our candy wrappers or gum wrappers, making airplanes, flying them at each other, or making paper wads, putting them in our suspenders and snapping them, trying to hit somebody, catching flies, tying them onto a piece of hair, just different things like that. We would, maybe not talk, but be interacting with other boys. And man, if it got too wild, I can still feel it to this day. But that hard, just big finger from dad, hard finger coming up on your head and just thump, 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 thump. Like, busted. Sometimes you would see this from him, and that would mean come sit with me, which would be horribly embarrassing. Like, you had to go sit with your dad. It never happened to me, I don't think, but I saw some other boys. Yeah, you didn't want that to happen. And that's just the light stuff, There's boys who've gotten a lot more trouble than that. Not perfectly behaved by any means. I'm going to grab a wok. Now, physical A, PA. Like I said, it's there. It is there. When it comes to spanking, I've heard Amish talk about you gotta break the will of the child. And I'm not 100% sure what that means. Translated, it'd probably be better. You got to break the child's spirit. Maybe this is why a lot of them are so well behaved. I, I, I wish somebody knew more about this. I'm not a psychologist. I've heard many parents talk about it. The spirit of the child has to be broken in. They're doing it at a young age, 1, 2 years old is the goal. 3. So that the child will just give up and obey. I've heard it often when a child won't join the church, the Amish church, or leaves the Amish church. Yeah, well, they're just disobedient, and their will has never been broken. Their spirit has never been broken. If any of you know what I'm talking about, if, I don't know how to explain it. I don't understand it for sure. Let me know in the comments. This I cannot condone. That I would say is definitely PA. It is definitely emotional A, spiritual A, and I don't like. I shudder to think of all the damage that has been done with breaking the will of the child. What's that mean? I've heard it used on training horses as well. Breaking the horse's will. So obviously, it is not getting the child to obey and follow your lead with love. It's it's a form of it can't be good. It can't be. What what happens? Let me know. Somebody let me know what happens when a child's will is broken. I would think, since we are all designed by God, that He has put that spirit in us, that some of us have that spirit to go further, to do more, to be zealous, to get to maybe, in this case, step outside the Amish community to pursue God's will, to do more for His kingdom. And they're trying to break that. Is that what it is? Help me out. What is my opinion on spanking? Well, I think it's good if it's done right, if it's done out of love, if it's not done while you're angry, if it's not done. I think a spanking in this world would do a lot of good with the kids. But with the fatherless homes, I think it's, yeah, like it's just, in my opinion, spanking should be done, if you choose that form of punishment, should be done by the father only. It should be done when you're not angry. Should be done out of love. And our pastor in Idaho, I can't remember exactly how we talked about it one time, and he said that, yep, he spanked his kids, but he made them, when they did something wrong, he made them go get the belt or whatever he used and bring it to him and bend over his knees. And I use that method, and it works. You don't have to spank hard at all, because by the time they have gone and gotten the belt and over your knees, they have pretty much taken their punishment. It's, there has to be very little pain at that point. Spanking does not work for every child. There are children who can handle the pain, and they will take the pain, and I don't care how black and blue they would be, they would you would get done and they would laugh in your face and do it and just laugh just to get it over you. So that it doesn't work for everybody. And no, I've never ever would I, yeah. I think I have never enjoyed it, but it is a punishment that works for some. If you if you do things while you're angry, it's not good. I'm not an expert at I'm not an expert at disciplining children. I'd have a lot to learn. Every child is different. Every child handles it differently. But when you pull hair, when you pull ears, or you spank a kid or hit him on the face or the butt or wherever, when you're angry, that does nothing. That's not healthy at all. Punishment consequences have to be calculated, and it should hurt the parent more than the kid. should hurt the parent more than the kid. But we're parents, we're humans. Sometimes out of anger, we do things we shouldn't. I remember as a kid when we didn't do our chores or we did something bad and we knew when Dad would come home that we would be getting a spanking. And we should have gotten a spanking. We deserved it. But then sometimes he would come home and Mom would tell him and he'd look at us and we, whatever, we'd agree that we did it or whatever it was. He would get that look of disappointment and exhaustiveness on his face. Like, well, you guys didn't do what I told you to do again, the chores. And I just remember a 2-minute spanking. The spanking would have been over in 2 minutes. But he got that look of disappointment and exhaustion and just went and did his own thing. That was a 3-day punishment. That was not fun. The guilt that you carried for 2 to 3 days was horrible. The spanking would have been much, much less hard. I've read somewhere, and I think it's true, and I still fail so much at it, that as we're raising our kids, we give 80% criticism. You didn't do this right. You got to do this right. You got to do it this way. You aren't doing it. You need to get done. And 20% praise. Like, hey, good job. And it should be flip-flop. And I agree. We should be giving 80%. They will be more productive. Or they will be more behaved with 80% praise, 90% praise than 89% criticism, punishment. Spanking done right, I'm on board. Spanking done wrong, PA. That's how it is. That's my opinion. Was I going to say something else? Do I have anything else to share? I don't know. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm CJ. This is the Amish Potato. We'll see you guys next time.